3 months ago, political literacy for women took on a quest to understand the representation, or lack thereof, of women as political leaders and actors in our school textbooks. Our goal was to investigate whether women were represented in our education system, and if they were, then how. We asked ourselves, does our education system have meaningful representation of women? Is our education system addressing, discouraging, and challenging gender bias, or is it further perpetuating them? We asked 187 of you whether there should be more representation of women leaders in our curriculum, to which 98.9% agreed. Having an overwhelming majority agree to this claim, we decided to further investigate and conduct a content analysis on a total of 19 books. We wanted to see how women are portrayed in our textbooks, how much of women's participation in political events are highlighted, especially in comparison to their male counterparts, and if they are, then what capacity are these leaders presented in, and how about in fiction stories? There is very little representation of women to begin with. Chapters highlighting Nepal's historical and political events rarely mention women, either as leaders or actors, aside from the very few mentions of figures such as Queen Rajendra Raja Lakshmi Devi and Sahana Pradhan. Such figures are not only mentioned much less frequently, but are also mentioned in a smaller capacity than their male counterparts, who are often accorded central importance. In these books, women and women's issues often include victimized portrayals and are only mentioned within context of social change, but are largely absent from political and economic ones. What is also notable is the lack of critical analysis on these social issues. These books often boast about end of gender discrimination, citing legal and policy changes. Students are discouraged to see beyond what's written, as they fail to question whether these policies are effective or if they have transformed societal outlook. These questions are never addressed. Now, assuming that women's contribution to historical, political, and economic changes as reflected in these textbooks are based on the truth and not explicit and implicit forms of gender bias, then wouldn't fiction stories, which are born out of imagination, be more egalitarian? Even in fiction stories, males form majority of the total characters. When women are represented, they are hardly in lead capacities and take up supporting roles in which they are addressed either as grandmothers, mothers, sisters, wives, and so on. There is also a jarring discrepancy in the ratio of male and female fiction writers and poets. What's more is that a majority of these writers are Western men, followed by Nepali or South Asian men, and a majority of the female writers are often Western women. But why is this important to address and overcome? In a series of interviews conducted by Political Literacy for Women, when students were asked to name their role models, only 3 out of the 21 figures mentioned were women. In the same interviews, 5 out of 7 girls agreed that the stories they learn in class affect how they position themselves in the world. Representation affects our understanding of different groups of people. Having explicit and implicit forms of bias against women, gender minorities, people from different castes and classes, and so on, affects how we view these groups and how we view ourselves within them, meaning that we unintentionally come to internalize these biases. Research points to education as an important and influential agent of socialization, making it an important tool for change. Meaningful representation within education, then, becomes something that we shouldn't overlook, but rather address head-on.